Welcome to the Preferred Walk-On Show. I'm your host, Seth Saunders, and I have a very special guest and a dear friend here with me today, George Somerville of the College Chaps podcast, who is stateside this week and this weekend to experience the greatest sport in all the land in person. And he was able to experience a Saturday night in Death Valley last night. George, it's fantastic to see you. I want to hear all about it.
I Seth. Yeah, I mean it's been something of a week. Listen, it's great to catch up with you again. It's great to be on your new podcast as such, right? So thanks for having me on. It's been an incredible week, nearly 10 days by the time I go home tomorrow. So yeah, it's just been sensational. Each trip seems to be getting better and better, if that's entirely possible. And as you can see in the way that I'm decked out in purple and gold, I still am in Baton Rouge, but I was in Tiger Stadium last night.
Well, I have to talk to you about an absolute why this sport never fails to live up to what from an expectation perspective. And yesterday was no different, whether it was the outstanding game in Knoxville between the Dogs and the Vols, whether it was Texas A&M and Notre Dame under the gaze of Touchdown Jesus last night. There was a ton of intrigue in the game you covered last night. There ended up being quite the battle in Oxford last night between Sam Pittman's Arkansas group and Lane Kiffin's Ole Miss. Just obviously the big upset in Atlanta with Clemson and Georgia Tech. Gosh, I mean, just another day of outstanding drama in the sport that we love. But what were your big takeaways from yesterday?
Well, I was reflecting on this even last week, Seth. Do you remember last year we talked about, by the time we got through week one, week two, week three, there was just a ton of upsets. And we were busy saying, oh, this is the greatest college football season ever. And I wouldn't say that we're getting used to that, but certainly there was a ton of, Clemson and Georgia Tech. Now, some ways was that a surprise because we've seen how Keys has built that Georgia Tech team, right? I watched Georgia Tech in Dublin last year, and they shocked FSU. It turns out FSU weren't very good, right? But what I like about a program like Georgia Tech is he's maintained that consistency, right? And he's building on that. You don't have that Florida State up and down. One year you have a fantastic year, and next year you're terrible. So that was you can call that a banana skin if you like, but actually that was a really difficult game for Clemson to play. I don't know if it goes through Dabler's mind, but if you're thinking of a game that you probably don't want to play at this stage in the season where your team's still trying to find its feet, it's probably Georgia Tech. So, that was a difficult one. I just love what Mike Elko's doing at Texas A&M, to be honest, right? And we're yet to see whether Notre Dame is the team that they were last year. Uh, doesn't look like it actually, but that was a massive win for Mike Elko at Texas A&M. So, they're starting to build some momentum, and of course that's the critical thing at this time of year, right? If you've heard Brian Kelly's rant from last night, it's about give the team credit. This isn't about being pretty and the finished product, and this is about building week on week and building some momentum, and I think that's what we're seeing with some teams.
I'm interested to see because I saw the bites this morning. I know you were in the room last night. How tense was it when Coach Kelly got the question about the offense and then he went on his tangent? I was obviously watching it just on the internet, and I was like, I am uncomfortable right now.
Always very uncomfortable, right? And and a lot of people kind of thinking this morning, was he sending a message to someone? Was he sending a message to the press? He was certainly sending a message to the guy who asked the question, but was he sending a message to his team? Hard to tell, if I'm perfectly honest. Do you know, what when I went into that room, what I was thinking was I've really grown to like Brian Kelly, right? He's not the guy that gets the best um social press, right? People
Mhm.
like to, Notre Dame's fans love to just pile in on him, And I wasn't entirely sure that LSU fans had bought into him. But what I was thinking from the outside looking in the first few weeks of the new season, and particularly seeing him at SEC Media's days, was that he's kind of grown into that role, and there's a bit of a confidence to him. Not that he's short of confidence anyway, but and he got some humour attached to him, right? So I think, I watched him last week when he's got a habit of getting felled on the sideline these days, right? But when they were talking about him getting was it week 1 or week 2, he got knocked over, and he made a joke out of it, right? He made light out of it, and I thought it was really funny, and I was really taken. I thought, he's really kind of settled into that role and relaxed and all the things he wasn't last night. And I don't know whether he came to the podium hot, but that was the first question. That was straight out of the bat. And it was interesting because they said, questions. No, sorry, he said questions, and there was a silence, right? That you don't always get. And for me, a silence is great because that gives me the opportunity to jump in. I am so thankful I did not jump into that point, right? And he just launched. I'm reflecting here, and I don't think I think it was the nuance behind the question. I don't think the question was bad, but I think it was the nuance and perhaps the relationship that he's had with the press. Interestingly, though, sorry, I'm trying hard to answer your question. Garrett Nussmeier did not make it to the press room last night. So, and in fact, upon reflection, I could be wrong here, but the 4 players who came to the press room were all on the defensive side of the ball. So I don't know what that tells you about the offense just now, but the offense isn't clicking, right? I mean, yes, they scored 20 points against a dogged Florida team, but we now know that this is not the Florida team that everyone thought it might be, and DJ Lagway is not the quarterback that everyone thought he was going to be at this stage of the season. But yeah, uncomfortable was one word to use. It was I don't think I've done a lot of this stuff now, mostly in the UK with the NFL teams, but I've done more and more with the college stuff over here. I've never had a rant like that. I've never seen a rant. It was certainly uncomfortable.
Yeah, it was one of those things. It's been a fun and funny in a lot of ways year for sound bites across college football, and I feel like that's just another one added to the heat. But I think to your point, it is kind of a way to send a message to your team and kind of stand out in front of that. And so I do think there was some of that involved in that. I want to go to Knoxville with you. Obviously, that was a forecasted big game, right? Georgia, Tennessee always has a lot of stakes, ton of history in that game. It's Larry Munson's My God, a freshman, and it's hobnail boot, all the things, iconic calls. And in so many ways, that game went beyond, I think, what the expectations were. Mm-hmm. I'm interested to ask you something, because this has been a thing I have harped on, and I've felt this way, especially since I went to the game in Athens last year between Georgia and Tennessee. But, Josh Heupel has gotten a lot of flack, I feel like, the last couple of years for whether it be offensive game plans or what they were doing offensively. Yeah. And what I noticed Stanford last year was that scheme was there were guys running open, the point guard to make the D. And I think now with Joey Aguilar, they have that. And boy, did they look explosive last night. I mean, constantly stretching the field against a Georgia defense who I think, when all is said and done, is going to be very, very good. Mm-hmm. But boy, they got beat like a drum last night. Obviously, Georgia won the football game, but I think the big takeaways for me for each team were, number one, Tennessee's going to be in this thing. They have the weapons to do some stuff in this SEC race. And then on the flip side of that coin, boy, did Gunnar Stockton answer a lot of questions and a lot of critics. And I would probably include myself in that. My big question was, if Gunnar Stockton has to go win you a football game, can everybody hop on his back, and can he do it? And gosh, George, I don't know if there's a better answer of yes to that than that big drive at the end of the game and then 2-point conversion. But I know you had a lot going on getting prepared for the game on Saturday night in Death Valley, but what were your thoughts on that game? What were your takeaways on that game?
Well, from SEC media days through what I've been kind of contemplating is that a lot of these quarterbacks are getting a lot of hype, but Gunnar Stockton for some reason is getting a lot of hate. And we saw him in the final plays of the SEC championship game, and what really struck me from that was how the team rallied round about him. The team kind of they drew him in, or he drew the team to them, right? In a way that I'm not entirely sure Carson Beck did, to be honest. And what just sticks at the back of my mind, Seth, is that Georgia won 2 national championships without having a superstar quarterback, right? We now laud Stetson Bennett, but you know better than I do the criticism that Stetson Bennett got when he started out at Georgia, right? So I don't think that Georgia needs to have the stellar court. It doesn't have to have a Arch Manning or a DJ Lagway. So going into this game yesterday, you're absolutely right. Saw a little bit on the screens when I was in the stadium, but certainly what was happening was that Tennessee just flew out the gates, and that's a fast-paced, high-powered offense. And that's going to catch a lot of teams by surprise. I do think the Georgia defense is good. I think the Georgia defense is going to get them back to an SEC championship game, to be perfectly honest. And I think what the really deciding factor, you hit the nail on the head, was that they did enough to overcome that Tennessee team, and that it doesn't really matter. As Brian Kelly said last night, that's a win. It's a win in the win column, and you move on because they've obviously got Alabama in a couple of weeks' time.
Oh, I want to talk to you about that because obviously we try to be unbiased in the shows that we respectively have, but I know you follow and support Alabama, and I obviously follow and support Georgia, and you and I have talked offline about how we're both so excited about this pending matchup on 9/27. And in a lot of ways, I do think the fun thing about this playoff format is that these teams get to continue to evolve and grow into what they're going to be. Alabama, since the opening week difficulties against Florida State, I think is building, right? And yesterday was obviously their most complete product, just demolishing Wisconsin. And there's just a lot of ghosts and demons with Georgia and Alabama on the Georgia side. And so I think there needs to be an exorcism of sorts if you're a Dogs follower in Sanford on the 27th. And if you're Alabama, I don't think you have a lot of angst about it because there's been this narrative before, right? Like, oh, yeah, Georgia's going to do it. Georgia's favored X, Y, and Z. So as we kind of lead into that game, what are your initial thoughts as those two programs get ready to face off again?
Well, Ty Simpson's turning into a really good quarterback. You look at his stats, and he is Mr. Consistent. He's Mr. Accurate. He's got targets. Jeremy Bernard, Ryan Williams. These are very, very good targets. So what I'm not sure about yet, I caught a little bit on the screen here yesterday. I came back to the hotel to escape the searing heat of Baton Rouge before the game. I'm not so convinced about the run game yet, but we'll see because I don't think they have superstars. But I wrote a piece this week about the game last weekend, which was what I said was Alabama doesn't need superstars this year. They just need their talent to just to perform, which I think is what DeBoer is preaching, right? You see a lot about the turnover during the game. He turns over the personnel on the field, which means that a lot of freshmen are getting playing time. And what he says is that preaches competition on the roster. So it means that the juniors and the seniors who think they've cemented a place are not guaranteed it. They have to play to their maximum each game. Now that wouldn't have happened under Saban. Saban had he had different motivation tactics, but he played his juniors and his seniors, and nobody else got a look in. So I think it's going to be an interesting matchup. It's in Athens, obviously. So I think the Dogs are favoured in that. It's going to come down to the defenses, I think, Seth. I'm not convinced about this Alabama defense. They were much better yesterday. I don't know how good Wisconsin is. I was at ULM the week before. They were very determined. I mean, that was a great showing insofar as they came out and had a point to prove. And I think what you could tell I mean, in theory, that wasn't a cupcake game, right? Because ULM could have tripped them up. That was a proper banana skin waiting to happen. In fact, a lot of people said, "Oh, look, Alabama's going to struggle." They came out 72-0. The ULM head coach didn't come to the podium. He got on the bus and he disappeared. He wasn't going to speak to the press after that. I think that tells you about the humbling that they got. To score, what was it, 38 points against Wisconsin, who typically are good on defense. But as I say, I'm not up to speed with how good they are this year. Again, that was another statement. I think it's shaping up to be a great game, right? In Athens. I assume it's a night game. I don't know what the timeline is. I mean, that's going to be a sensational game, to be perfectly honest. And I say, I'm not convinced about Kane Womack's defense. Haven't been last year. Certainly wasn't in the Florida State game. To your point about mobile quarterbacks, which I know Gunnar Stockton isn't really. Alabama's going to struggle with that. So when if they come up against a Pavy or a player like that, they're going to struggle with it. Maybe Stockton might be more in their wheelhouse, but it's going to be a great game.
Oh, I can't wait. I just love the draw games. Alabama's first visit back to the Classic City and come night in the rain. I have a keen eye on it. Well, look, George, I know you got time for us this morning. I hope you noticed this late summer and early fall, I could break out my college Chaps couture. So I was sure to wear that. Well, look, George, it's always great to see you. I think you're one of the great ambassadors for college football, and I'm proud to call you a friend now too. So always nice to see you. Please tell our listeners before you head out how they can support you and support College Chaps.
Thank you so much. So, and listen, I really I value our friendship. One of the great things about getting across here is getting to. We didn't meet in person this time, but is getting to meet up. I've met so many people this week. It's just been phenomenal. You guys over here, particularly in the South, Southern hospitality is a real thing. And I love coming across here. So thanks to everybody who's been so nice to me. At College Chaps, we're on Twitter and Instagram. We'd really like some subscribers on YouTube. We found YouTube really difficult to get people to come and watch us because most people listen to us on the podcast. So we're on Apple, we're on Spotify. So come and give us a listen. We've got some good guests coming up in the next few weeks as the season starts to unfold. So and you can follow me. I'm on Twitter and X and Instagram at Geo Somerville. So come and say hi.
Make sure y'all go to video coverage, and George is right. They always have outstanding. College Chaps is the place to be. You got to have it on your weekly watches and your weekly listens. Well, George, it's outstanding to see you, and we'll keep watching the drama and the excellence that is the sport that we love, college football. Until we see you again, brother. It's good to see you. I hope you have safe travels.
Thank you, Seth. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.